Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Loopy. And I'm always open to recommendations of guests to have on here. My main goal is to amplify the voices of women. So, it could be a woman who owns a business, it could be a woman who's training for her fourth marathon, who lives a healthy lifestyle, a woman who started a foundation, a woman who volunteers, whatever a woman has to share that can inspire, inform, entertain listeners. I am all for it. So, my guest this week, I also like to say how I know my guests because I do think it's also important that we network. And I know network for some people is a dirty word. So, think of it maybe as just talking to people, right? Connecting, getting to know people, being curious, learning about them, sharing what you're all about. And I feel like we can always, in one way or another, eventually show up for one another, and help one another. And at the very least, isn't it cool to just get to learn different things and learn about people? So, my guest this week is Michelle Herron of Cupboard Maker Books in Enola, PA. And she was recommended to me by my good friend Tina Gallagher, who's been on the podcast twice before. She is a romance author, and her current series is actually based here in Scranton, where Tina and I both live. It's the Thick Girls Pole, the pole dance series. Before that, she had the Carolina Waves, which was is about baseball romance. And so she's been doing a lot of signings. She's been getting out there at different kinds of romance author events and different bookstores. And she had the pleasure of going to Cupboard Maker Books a few times now, I think. And she said, you know what? I want you to talk to the owner because I think it's a great place. And there's also, like, from what I understand, cats walking around there to, help people relax, I guess, while they're reading, whatever. And I want to get into all of that, but I want to welcome my guest this week, Michelle Herring. Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Oh, great. Yeah. And I know it's kind of awkward because, like, we never met in person. So it's the first time we're meeting here. It's on Zoom, which is not as good as meeting in person. But I know that Tina, like I said, she's raved about how wonderful, how gracious you guys all were, and about your space there in Enola. And for folks who aren't, I'm sure some folks are like, oh, I know exactly where that is. It's kind of, I guess, would you say South Pennsylvania or South? I don't know if it's Southeast or.
It's South Central, so we're really close to Harrisburg. We're right across the river from Harrisburg, and we're like half an hour from Hershey. Usually I just say Hershey because everybody knows Hershey.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you're right about that, right? The sweetest place on earth.
Mhm.
I had remembered seeing the signs I mentioned to you before I hit record. For a while, my brother lived in Hagerstown, Maryland, which really, like, when you cross the border from PA, it's like not too far into Maryland.
Mhm.
And I would see the sign for Enola. So I never went there, but I remember seeing the sign. So I kind of know where it's at. But before we talk, I'd love to talk about, your business there and all of that. But I'd love to get to know a little bit about you first, if you don't mind. And I know it's kind of funny because I need, some people need parameters, others don't. If you want to just share a little bit about yourself, because I'd love to learn a little bit about you and have the listeners learn about you.
Sure, absolutely. So I have been an owner of the bookstore for 27 years. We've been in business for 27 years. This has been the best job I've ever had. I love having a bookstore. The reason I became full time here, my husband started the store right before we got married. We got married. He ran the store for a couple of years, and I taught high school. Then I became pregnant with our child, and I didn't want to go back to being with other people's kids. So I raised my son in the bookstore. I was a stay in the bookstore mommy, which was the best of all worlds. He is now 23. He worked for the bookstore for a while. Now he's a freelance artist. That's my son, not my husband. And my husband sold cars while I ran the store. 2 years ago, he retired from the car business to come join me back at the bookstore. So this has been my life. It feels like forever, and it's a great life.
Wow. So did your husband actually start, like, was it a business that was there that he bought, or did he start the actual
He
bookstore?
started it, which explains the name Cover Maker Books. He did custom built painted furniture and like country crafts. If you remember the late 90s, the longer burger basket, well, we sold Bradford baskets, but baskets and candles and Boyd's Bears, oh my. And that's what he did. And we had one shelf of books. And then I got a bookcase. And then I got a room. And then I was like, hey, we could totally do this as a bookstore. I was selling books online on the side, but we kept the name of his store and then kind of transitioned it into being all books. We started out as a used bookstore. Now we are about a third of our sales are new books. we still have a lot of used books, but most of our growth in the last couple years since COVID has been in new books, which is so much fun because I love new books
Oh,
and used
wow.
books and all books.
Yeah, I get the sense that you really like books, right? Now you said you taught high school, so were you like an English teacher or?
I was actually a history teacher. So before I did this, before I did teaching, before I moved back to the area, I got a master's degree in history. Then I was working on a doctorate. And I didn't finish the doctorate. And what do you do with a degree in history? You teach high school history for a couple of years. So I did that. I taught high school and college. I adjuncted for college as well. I loved history. I just love books more.
Okay. All right. And I think they go really well together, right? I
Mhm,
mean, you can read a lot of things about history or even
mhm,
like fictional type things, whether, a lot of history elements, historical
mhm.
romance or historical anything, right? So you can kind of merge the two. Yeah. Um,
Absolutely.
just a side question that has nothing to do with books exactly. Was there anything, because you obviously you must have enjoyed history to get a degree in it. Is there any period or anything specific that you're like, just like you could talk if you were at a cocktail party and you could talk on and on about?
So I actually was really interested in studying women business owners, but women business owners at the beginning of the last century because they were really, in some ways, overlooked. I lived in Pittsburgh for a couple of years working on my master's, and I did a block study. And what I found was that most of the businesses on the block were run by women because the men were working in the mills. It was a working class neighborhood. And I thought, wow, nobody ever talks about women business owners and especially working class women business owners. So I was going to work on a PhD on that and I applied to a doctoral program and I got in. They thought that was a great idea until I got there and they said, "Oh no, we would really like you to study these magazines about middle class women business owners in the same time period." And it wasn't exactly what I wanted to focus on, hence the fact that I did that for a year.
Okay. And did you learn what insights did you walk away from that with, or what would you want to share about that?
The doctoral programs are incredibly political and somewhat exploitative. So I learned that. And I also learned that it's really hard to find data about common people. Right now, there's an incredibly popular book, Frozen River by Ariel Larson, which is a book about a woman business owner in the 1700s. She's a midwife. And the only reason that Ariel Larson could do that historical fiction novel is because the person that it's about, Martha Ballard, left a diary. And then a historian for her doctoral dissertation, Laura Thatcher Ulrich, did her dissertation and got it published as a book and won a Pulitzer Prize for Ballard's, essentially her diary, and then Ariel Larson turns into this beautiful book, which was really kinda hard for me to read having read the source material first, and the source material was like, "Delivered a baby, got a chicken." Delivered a baby, it snowed, I saw a fox. And then I read Ariel Larson's beautiful interpretation of this, where the fox meant so much, and I thought, "Huh, it is really hard to do common women." But I do highly suggest both books, Laura Thatcher Ulrich's Midwife's Tale as well as Ariel Larson's Frozen River.
Oh, wow. Wow. That is so interesting. I love that you wanted to study that. And it's like that, I mean, that could be a whole separate podcast alone, but like how women, and even during, I'm horrible with history, but Rosie the Riveter time frame when
Mhm.
women had,
Yep.
like, I say had to step up because before that, they weren't given the opportunity to step up and step into those positions where they were doing the work of men and running these businesses. And it's interesting. I bet you, I mean, that would have been probably a very interesting research paper if you were allowed or studied to continue on with that.
I find it really interesting because I think it's one of those things that women's history gets forgotten because they didn't leave the data and they weren't upper class. So because we didn't hear about them, women actually ran businesses throughout American history, but until the 1960s, a woman couldn't have a credit card in her own name. So guys kept taking credit for it. So, yeah,
Mm.
that's a whole thing. I can jump on that soapbox. I'm thinking about maybe in the new year doing classes on that. Like doing a class comparing Ariel Larson to the source material. There's some other really good historical fiction about women out there, and I would love to do classes with we would read the source material, then we would read the historical fiction, and then we would talk about what changed and what that says about women's lives. So,
Mm. Wow, that's interesting. So would it be the kind of like the interpretation of how taking the everyday woman and then putting it into literature, that kind of thing?
Mhm. It
Yeah.
would be, and also the history that we don't know,
Mm,
because, like, I know a lot of it, and I forget that not everybody knows all of these things, like, that they didn't study that. I mean, if you think about it, who ran candy shops and who were seamstresses? And yes, there were tailors, but seamstresses, and who made hats? Most of those were women. We just didn't hear about it.
yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I'm ashamed to say this is one thing. Like I love to write, and I do stand-up comedy, so I write my own material and things like that. But I'm always embarrassed to say I don't read a lot. I'm like, yeah, I'm really not proud to say. Like I like shorter things. I will
Mhm,
freely admit I don't. So I'm not, I was never really super interested in history, but hearing you talk about this kind of stuff I want to know more about. Like I'd love to hear more about the things that we don't know because unfortunately it hasn't been talked about, like women business owners and how much women have
mhm.
contributed to business and to society. That stuff does interest me for sure. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool. um I what was it? And again, you're probably like, I'm on here to talk about books, but like, when did you do you miss teaching? Or like when you transitioned into like running a bookshop, because obviously you like books too. Do you miss the teaching part? Because you can also then inspire, like I'm sure you were inspiring a lot of students.
So teaching was great. I'm really happy I had a chance to do it. I got out of teaching just as cell phones were creeping into classrooms.
Mm,
I do not think I would wanna teach now. I am a big proponent of absolutely no cell phones in classrooms. Like, that's a whole different thing, but I don't think it would have been easy. It was already getting difficult to compete with their phones that were being hidden under desks, because when I was teaching, I taught high school, they still would get a day of in-school suspension if they were caught with their phone in class. I taught at a Catholic school, it was a little tougher. Then phones became ubiquitous, and I can't imagine, because phones, even with me, like, I love to read. I read a book a day on average, about 300 a year.
wow.
So well, and it's interesting because when we, interview people for to work at the bookstore, we have a requirement that they read at least a book a month. It's just one of our requirements so that you can talk about books.
That's fair.
Now,
Yep.
some of my employees, I have one that's at 90 for the year. I have another one that's at like 130. I'm at like 175. So, yeah, it's a different way of looking at things, but my phone will still call to me. And I can't imagine being a kid with that kind of impulse control and trying to listen to someone drone on no matter how passionate they are about the topic when your phone is right there and it's got such pretty pictures on it and like there's those cute little stories. And I mean, I get pulled in. I probably will read a couple chapters and then I'll pick up my phone and then I'll look up and it's 15 minutes later, and I
Yeah.
hate that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm really gonna try to work like, well, I was just thinking I want my phone on the other side of the room when I'm in my bedroom so that I'm not tempted to pick it up and just scroll through and look at mindless things, you know, with pretty cats. I do love the cat pictures. I love the supernatural shorts. Oh my god, I've been sucked back into Friends and Big Bang Theory, all of those things, the memes. So,
Yeah, it's a shame, and I mean I think we're all, for the most part, most of us I would say, are guilty of it. Like you said, the time that goes by is so. I mean, I can waste time like nobody's business. It's like
mhm,
you scroll, and then you're like, I might see things and I go, oh, I wonder. Blah blah blah, and then I might Google
mhm,
something to learn more about. And it's like, okay, Janine, 30 minutes has gone by. You did not start this that you needed to work on. Like
mhm.
it's and like you said, with younger people, they don't have the same, it's just different for them, so how can we blame them? Almost, you know what
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean?
I don't
Yeah.
blame them at all. That's why I think to get classrooms back to where they need to be. So, I the way that I work with teaching now is I run 4 book clubs every month.
Oh wow.
So, we have a book club every week, and that's a little bit like teaching. It's really fun, it's a lot of crowd control. It's just interesting because now my students are sometimes my age, and how do we get back on topic, and how do we do all those things? So, what I do is I make up book club questions, and I my book clubs aren't, how can I put this? They're not literary fiction. They're not history. My book clubs are, I have a romance book club, a fantasy book club, Fountain of Youth book club, which is adults reading teen books,
Mm.
and I don't know if I said I have mystery, romance, fantasy, and then adults reading teen books, which we call Fountain of Youth. So
Oh,
I do that, and the questions are all on our store website, so that I figure if somebody else is in a bind and they need questions at the last minute, they can always go in there to look.
That's great. That's really cool. Yeah, that's interesting. Um, yeah, now you're making me almost want to read. How about that? I really have to. I really should. No, because I feel like you learn so much when you're reading. And I mean, I'm sure it's learning, but it's also escapism too. I mean, we have so much stress in the world and crap. It's like it's a great way to escape, right?
Oh, absolutely. And what I read, I mean, I read mostly romance because romance, one author said this, it's the genre of hope. And even if we're not in a relationship right now, like as humans, we experience love and we experience love in different ways. And I love reading about people falling in love. I just think it's absolutely great and overcoming barriers and getting to live happily ever after. So when I say I read 300 books a year, I do, but like 200 of those are romance.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I like what you're saying though, because that's the truth. Because we have enough negativity, and like you're saying, the
Mhm.
hope is really, and couldn't we all use a little bit more of that? My gosh, yeah, yeah. So I want to ask you about the cats, but I also want to ask you about. I love the fact that the requirements you do have for your employees because that makes absolute sense. You're going to have people coming in there asking about books, and probably it's great when they can have conversations, even deep conversations with people and and just interesting and they'll okay, these people know what they're talking about. What has been you mentioned you're getting more newer books because you had a lot of you sold older used books. What is the challenge? I'm happy to hear this because I feel like print was going away or we were worried that it was. It seemed like it was.
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah.
not the case anymore? Because I almost feel like there is a resurgence of people
Oh,
wanting books in their hands.
there's a huge resurgence. So it was COVID. It was COVID when people realized now I could not read through my TBR, my to be read pile. I can't get through it. Like not in my lifetime. Not if I stopped buying books today. If I stopped buying books today, it would probably take me at the 300 books a year about 30 years to get through what I have aside for myself.
Wow.
Yes, I'm also a collector, so I'm a little bit different, but I think what a lot of people realized during COVID is that, wow, I don't always have access to physical books, and here's a side note, if it's online, it can be changed or removed at any time. It's not really yours, when it comes to the evil A, which is Amazon, which I think I loathe them on so many levels, but they remove things from your Kindle. Like, even if you think you own them, you only have the rights. So, physical books so I have a story, and I love this story, it's a true story. So, it's going back into history. So, we're all familiar with Adolf Hitler, and he wrote his book, My Struggle or Mein Kampf, and the first American edition was printed by someone in Harrisburg. It was Stackpole Publishing. It was a publishing company, General Stackpole ran it, and he bought a copy because they were everywhere in Germany. He had it privately translated. He printed it in America, and he said, "This is completely unauthorized. Hitler doesn't get a penny for it." It was across the dust jacket. And Hitler sued him. It was 1938. We weren't at war yet. Hitler won, and all of the books were supposed to be destroyed. Okay,
Mm.
so all of these books are supposed to be destroyed. 70 years later, I go into a house. We were back then we bought books. We don't buy books now. We only trade for store credit. But we bought books and I paid this lady for this book and it had that dust jacket. And so I did the research. And that's when I found out they were all supposed to be destroyed. Yeah, that doesn't work once a book is out in the wild. You can't destroy it. On the other hand, Jeff Bezos let everyone know exactly what he was planning to do. The Kindle was brand new and the book 1984 was on everybody's Kindles. And then they woke up one day and it was gone because there were copyright problems. They got their money
Mm.
back, but the book was just gone. Now, it cannot be a coincidence that the first book that ever got pulled off of Kindle was 1984. I mean, it can't be. So that's my whole thing that I think people started realizing if you don't have a physical copy, you don't own it. And the other thing that happened is the really pretty books started becoming um, a thing. So if you've seen the books that are absolutely beautiful with the sprayed edges, people love those as trophies. We have a lot of customers, they'll buy a book on their Kindle or they'll listen to a book and they'll come in and they're like, well, I need the physical copy now because I need to have it on my trophy shelf. During Zoom calls, now admittedly, behind me, you can hardly see any of the books. It's just where I set this up. But people started also having like fake bookcases behind them on their Zoom calls so that they would look smart. And it was the one time people were buying encyclopedias again. Like they really weren't buying encyclopedias to keep them because that information dates really quickly. But they would have encyclopedia sets behind them because then they would look smart if they had books behind them.
Oh my God. Oh my
So
God.
those
That's
two
hilarious.
things I think came together, those couple of things. And I love it. And a lot of my customers are actually under 30. They're people that grew up and they could read everything on their laptop, on their phone, on their desktop. Like they could read everything electronically and they decided that they wanted to have books.
Wow. I think that's great. Now, I would not know anything about those sprayed edges if it wasn't for Tina. She's been
Mhm.
telling me about that and I'm like, "Oh, wow." Like and collector's editions and different things like
Mhm.
that. I'm like, "Wow, I would not know any of this." So
Yeah.
that's wild. I love to hear young people, the fact that young people want actual physical books.
Oh
That
yeah.
gives me hope for the future of books. Yeah. Yeah. I grew up in a family. My dad worked for our paper here. It was the Scranton Times. Now it's the Times Tribune for 40 some years. I delivered the newspaper. I eventually, so I had my degree in journalism. I worked for the one small like shopper paper that was inserted. So I love the idea of holding, even though I'll admittedly not read that much. I prefer the idea of holding
Mhm.
something. I just think there's something so good about that physical, like the tactile aspect of it. And the books, some of them are so beautiful and, leather bound, the covers and things like that. So I'm thrilled to hear that there's resurgence and there's interest. I think that's great. Yeah. Um, Tell me about now. So now it's all books. And so do you still have some used or is it all new now?
Oh my gosh, no, we totally have used books.
Okay.
So 30% of our sales are new, but the store when you come in, I would say 80 to 90% of the store is used books. That the 10% of the store, maybe 15, 20, that is new books, it just turns really quickly, much more quickly than the used books. The used books are the long tail, they're the depth, but the new books are what we get super excited about selling. That's the stuff that I can restock. I can't restock used books.
Mm.
I have no idea what's walking through the door next. We don't buy, we only trade for store credit. I do go out to different places and sometimes buy books myself for the store, but yeah, it's really not replaceable, whereas new books generally are. And I've gotten more involved with some of like the American Booksellers Association and stuff like that, and the publishers, and now they send me like free advance copies so that I can order the books and be ready to hand sell them the day they hit the floor.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's cool.
Oh, it's so
Tell
cool.
That is, I can imagine. That's pretty exciting, I would think. Yeah.
Mhm.
Tell me about the events that you have there because I know Tina was there, and do you do a lot of those? Because I feel like that's got to be great for. It seems like everyone wants to come out. A lot of these readers want to come out and meet the authors, get them the signed copies. That seems like a pretty fun event.
I love doing events. So we've gone up and down in events. So we had a really big push for events. I was planning to do, I don't even remember what I was planning to do in 2020. We were really hopping in 2019 with events, and I was like, next year's going to be even better. Yeah, it wasn't because it was 2020 and I had to cancel like everything and
Yeah.
nobody wanted to be in person, which I totally understand and I am completely behind. But it just kind of knocked the wind out of that. So
Mm.
what we do now is we do quite a few events, but they're more targeted. So we don't do nonfiction events much anymore. We really don't do much with nonfiction authors because that's not our focus. And being in Harrisburg, there's an absolutely wonderful bookstore that's like us. They're hybrid. They do used and new, and they're right across the river. It's called Midtown Scholar. And so if they're nonfiction, I'm like, look, that is a much better fit for you. We tend to focus on the genre stuff, the stuff I like, so that I can read the author's books and be like, oh my gosh, I totally love this. We also had something wonderful, wonderful, amazing happen after COVID. There was a book that was doing really, really well on Kindle. And the author I had heard, like people that I knew her. Her name's Lucy Score, and she was still independently published at that point. And I loved her books. I was in the middle of reading them. Some of my employees saw her at a big event that was it was called Indies Invade Philly. And I was stocking her books, and she came into my store and saw her books on my shelves and was stealth signing them and was told by, Mr. Lucy, by Tim, that she wasn't supposed to do that. And she's like, "Nope, I wrote them. I can totally do that. They're gonna like this." So, um, she was proving completely correct when she walked up to the counter. I didn't see her stealth signing, and I lost my mind, and I was like, "Oh my god, are you Lucy Score? I love all your stuff," and then I proceeded to fangirl all over her, embarrassingly so, but we've had a great relationship since then. Like, I think the world of Lucy, and then she got picked up by a big publisher, so she got picked up by Bloom Source Books, and all of a sudden, all of the people that knew about everybody knew about her. So she's been on the New York Times bestseller list, she's hit number 1 repeatedly, spent many, many weeks, and we're her local independent bookstore, and she stops in once every couple weeks, and I ship her books all over the US, not internationally. Shipping international is terrible. And so Lucy also found us after COVID, so that was another great shot in the arm. And like I said, she is so wonderful, and I love all her books, and I love small town romance. It's really my jam.
Wow. And so again, I'm going to thank Tina because I wouldn't know who Lucy Score was, but Tina has of course met her and not just met her, but they seem to have what I will say is an incredibly supportive community of writers. And I
Mhm.
just from spending a lot of time with Tina and hearing her stories, I almost feel like I know these women even though I don't. But they seem so supportive of one another. And then she has talked to me about Lucy and her success and the fact that she's from what, Harrisburg or Mechanicsburg, right there in that area.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, right here.
Yeah, that had to be quite
Yeah, it's
exciting.
been great
Yes.
to watch.
Wow. I think, well, when she
I
told
do we'll
me,
talk to the authors about that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say when she first told me about it, even though, like I said, again, even though I'm not a big reader, I love to hear, like, whether it's from Northeast PA or anywhere PA, it's like, she's from here. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So that's really neat. And it makes sense that you're saying you want to have the events of the books that you like, the genres, because I'm sure that's also more fun to
Mhm.
coordinate them and then to have the authors there in your store, which is really cool. Um, Tell me about the part, and I don't know too much about this. All Tina told me is, oh, and she's got, cats. And I think she sent me a picture of, I want to say it was like a board connecting maybe different shelves, and there was a little cat walking over. Tell me all about that, how that got started. What's the idea that cats are calming or people can pet them while they read? Or because I have seen that done. We might have one in Northeast PA, but I've not really. I'm allergic to cats and I'm not as big of a fan, although I say that and I do pet sit for my friends and they'll, of course, put their little noses right in my face. And so with that said, how did that all come about?
So we own our building. It's a big cinder block building on 11 and 15 on a highway, and we're across from train yards. And we're about a mile from the river. What does that all say? That all says mice, and mice skeeve me out. I do not want mice anywhere near my books, and I like cats. So we had our own cats, and we had worked with a rescue, and one of my employees wanted to be a veterinarian. She actually is now a veterinarian in Scotland, and she's like,
Oh my
"We could
God.
have bookstore cats." So originally the plan was we would work with a rescue and just have adoptable cats, not have our own. Well, that did not last very long. So we have our own store cats. There are 4 store cats that live here permanently. They're not up for adoption, but then we usually have 1 or 2 adoptable cats as well that live here until they get adopted. We've adopted out over 280 cats from the store.
Oh my God. That's
Mhm.
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Now, so they can kind of just roam around the
Mhm.
store, like among do a lot of people end up like, just can people sit and read in your store? I'm just making an assumption. I didn't know that, you know.
Not really. So we don't have a lot of chairs. We have a lot of bookcases, and it's kind of like we trade one off for the other. And I always figure you can buy your books and take them home and read them. So they can see the cats, they can pet the cats. There's not a lot of places to sit. We had a couch at one point. Um, and then when I discovered 2 people using it for somewhat intimate purposes,
Oh boy.
I was like, "No more couches. No, no, no more couches.
More
Sorry,
couches. Oh my God.
no more couches." They were teenagers too, and yeah, it was all ick. So after that, we got rid of the couch, and then the chairs have gone as we've needed to replace them with bookcases. But people will sit on the floor to pet the cats. The cats roam freely. If we're really busy, sometimes we'll keep the cats. We have a cat room that is a separate room that customers can't see, that the cats sleep in at night, that's super safe for them. It has cat beds and cat trees and cat toys and all of the things. So And if I have somebody that's like doing a book signing that I know is allergic, sometimes the cats will get to stay in their cat room that night. Or we have a separate cage that's out here. It's a two-story cage. It's a good size, and I can keep them. I call it cat jail. It's not really jail, so they can stay in cat jail. So yeah, so we have people that come just for the cats. Because we work with rescue, I always try to be super encouraging. It's loving care, cat rescue, and they're wonderful. That we are not a cat cafe. People don't have to pay to come here, but we love it if people can donate to the Cat Rescue Foundation. It goes straight to them.
That's awesome. Wow, 280 that were adopted out. That's phenomenal. The fact that you can be doing that is wonderful. Yeah. It's a business with a great mission purpose that you're doing good while you're also like doing good, which is
Yes.
pretty awesome. Yeah, that's great.
And
Um,
we don't have mice now. There are no
I was
mice.
just gonna say they're nowhere to be found, right?
No,
They
because
are
mouse poop on
definitely.
books is really gross. It's
Oh,
really, really nasty. So
yeah.
then you have to throw away like the whole shelf, and I get skeeved
Mm.
out, and like I just want to go home and shower. So we have not experienced that in years.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I have had my share in my house, and I've had the issues where you're cleaning up, you see the droppings, and I'm like, oh no, and it's like I feel like, oh, it is. You're right. It's absolutely ick. So if you can avoid that, that's great.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. Um, since you love books so much, and you're a historian, have you ever thought of writing one yourself, or have you ever started one and then just kind of put it aside?
So when I was working on my doctorate, I was working on my dissertation, which is essentially going to be supposed to be turned into a book. I stopped that. I actually have written two mystery novels. I sell them in the store. They're sold through the store website. I hardly ever talk about them because I always feel so weird hand selling my own stuff. Interestingly enough, a lot of mysteries are set in bookstores. People seem to want this bookstore mystery. They are not, my mysteries are not set in the bookstore. They're set in the car business because after listening to my husband with 20 years of stories of the car business, believe me, the car business is far more likely to produce murderers than bookstores. It just is.
I love that. Yeah, so you're taking your husband's stories and turning them into something. I love that.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. As you were saying about the murders in the bookstores, I don't know if you watched this, but I was thinking of the show You that was on
Yes.
Netflix. The bookstore owner. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. I watched like an episode enough to see the vault in the basement. And I was like, well, nobody keeps their books like that. That is silly. And then that was it. Like it wasn't even the fact that he was stalking and murdering people. I was like, that's not how we keep our books. Nobody I know has a humidity controlled glass vault in their basement. And then I moved right on.
That was the deal breaker for you, huh? That
Yes,
was it.
absolutely.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's been such a pleasure talking with you. Is there anything else? Because I want you to have this opportunity. Because I do have listeners in the Harrisburg area. Because I have listeners kind of all over. Anything else that you wanted to say, whether it's about women in business or your business or anything that you wanted to promote or share? I love the fact that you have had interest, and I'm sure obviously still do, and you're going to possibly have that class about women in business. I think that's fantastic. But was there anything else that you're like, oh, I'd really love to make this point that we just didn't talk about?
So with our events, one of the things we do is twice a year we do local author weekends where we bring in local authors. We do a free class. Again, with the teaching, I can't get away from it. I do a free class 4 times a year for local authors to kind of explain how we do things at the store, and then they get invited to do a book signing. So September 20th and 21st, which is a Saturday and Sunday, we have a bunch of local authors that are coming to do book signings here at the store in a variety of fiction genres. And then our other event coming up that I'm super excited about is October 18th and 19th. We are doing Mystery Fantasy Horror Weekend.
Ooh.
And the centerpiece of that is Maria V. Snyder is this amazing fantasy romantasy writer, and it is the 20th anniversary of her first book, Poison Study, being in print. So we're doing this huge, awesome event around Poison Study. Maria's another person that if you wanted to do a podcast with Maria V. Snyder, I would highly suggest her. She's absolutely fabulous. I can send you her contact stuff when I email you later with a picture.
That
She
would be
is just great.
I feel like Tina might have mentioned her too. Now, is she a Pennsylvanian too or no?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, she lives in Elizabethtown, and so about 40 minutes from here, and she is absolutely fantastic. She was a meteorologist who became a fantasy writer, And she's a world traveler. She's been to every continent. I think now they're looking to knock out the countries. So,
Wow.
and I think this next one is national parks. They're going to visit every national park, and then she might do all the countries. But I know she's done all the continents because her favorite was actually Antarctica.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
she
I
is
would love
just
that.
absolutely fabulous.
Wow. I'm sure that Tina has mentioned her. Yeah, because as soon as you said that, I'm like, I think I've heard of her too because of Tina. Yeah. Oh, that would be awesome. That's really
She's
great.
also a New York Times bestseller. Her book Poison Studies with HarperCollins. Like she is really just one of those fantastic people that the people in book world are so great, and I feel really lucky to get to work with so many of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to say, from the stories that Tina shares, it just seems like I love hearing, because so much of the bullshit through the years about like the cattiness, right? That like
Mhm,
women don't want to help each other. And I mean, for me, the reason I started this podcast is to promote women. And because I've ran into through my lifetime, run into wonderful women. And even if
mhm,
it's just talking to them that I've never met them, I think there's a very supportive network. I just feel like, sure, there are other women out there who don't want to help, but that's different. I do
mhm.
find that there are supportive women. And the stories I've heard from Tina, it seems like they're all authors, but they're not clawing at each other. They're helping
Yeah.
one another, which I think is
Mhm.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of that among booksellers. I mean, there's a new bookstore that opened less than a year ago, and I meet her for lunch once or twice a month just to make sure that everything's going okay and if she has any questions and is there any way that I can help her. So yeah. And it wasn't like a formal mentor program. It was like I went into her store and I was just so charmed by it. That's another one to visit. It's Bookshelf Shenanigans. It's in Elizabethtown, and she's amazing and has such a cool life story, and that's people in book world have cool life stories.
Wow. I love that. And I love what you're saying. I mean, obviously you're a good person. I love that you're like willing to help. That is, and that's what people need, especially women. I think we don't realize sometimes that we can or we don't want to ask for help, or maybe we don't know where to go for help. Offering that, it's not competitive. It's just checking in. And I think when you are in the same business too, you can share some of the struggles you've had or some of the successes you've had. Maybe she has questions and you can help one another.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Oh, I love that name too. That sounds like a really fun bookstore.
Oh, it's so cute. It's so, 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 so cute.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so anybody heading out to the Hershey area, you've got to check out these bookstores, especially if you're into books, because these sound like great places to hit. So, this is I will put in the show notes those dates again and what you've got going on. I think, oh my gosh, the end of October, right before Halloween. That sounds like it's going to be really fun. That is
Mhm.
cool. So, what will they be? What exactly will the event be? I should ask.
So they're book signings for the most part, but
Okay.
then we are doing a party afterwards, after store hours. It's on our website. We are doing a party for Maria that there, since the book is Poison Study and it's about a poison taster. So there will be poison tastings at the party as well, plus some other trivia about the books and all of the things. But yeah, Maria is amazing, and 20 years, it's been so great to be friends with her and see people that as teens they found her book and now as adults they're like, "This is what got me through rough times." So, yeah, she's just amazing.
Wow. That's fantastic. I love that. And wow, what a great weekend right before Halloween to have a lot of fun there. Poison tasting. I love it. I love that. That's great. Well, I want to thank you so much. So the website, is it just the name of is it
Yeah,
cupboardmakerbooks.com or
nope,
what?
not even books, it's just cupboardmaker.com.
Okay, cupboard maker.
www.cupboardmaker.com.
Okay. I'll put that in the show notes too. And then I imagine you also obviously you must have a Facebook page of the same name or Cupboard Maker Books.
I think it's under Cover Maker Books for Facebook and
Okay.
Instagram.
Facebook and Instagram. Okay, and we'll promote that as well. All right,
Oh,
so
yeah, and
everybody.
TikTok too.
Oh, you do the talk too.
I do not. That is for others to do. I actually don't do the social media. I'm not good at it. So I do have my husband does most of the social media. On TikTok, we have like 120,000 followers. Um,
Wow.
yeah, we have a lot on TikTok. We had a few things that went viral, mostly the cats, and me opening a box, but that's a whole different.
Okay.
I opened a box and 6 million people saw me opening a box.
Okay. What was the deal there?
It was when Bridgerton was on. I mean, Bridgerton's coming back, but it was a special Bridgerton box, and I opened the box, and then we threw it up on TikTok, and then 6 million people saw it, and then I screamed and ran and hid, and I was like, "That was way too many people, I don't wanna do this anymore." So, yeah, so we have, like, between Facebook and Instagram, we're over 50,000 followers on
Wow.
those 2 together.
Wow, that's fantastic. My God. I'm like, wow, your husband's doing great there with the
Oh, he
social
does a great
media.
job.
That's
Great
great.
job.
He's crushing it, man. That's awesome. And I love that he's helping you too. You're the conversation I had the other day with another woman who was a guest about support when you have that support of your spouse. I think,
Mhm.
especially when you're running a business, that's got to be so key and so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I want to thank you so much, Michelle. This was so interesting. And I mean, again, no disrespect that I don't read, but you're making me want to read. I will tell you that much. I hope that means something. Really, you're so excited that it makes me want to be excited about it.
So start with Tina's books because 'cause they're super, super fun, and again, the genre of hope.
Yeah, well, I actually do proofread and edit her books. So,
Okay.
yeah, so so I shouldn't, I'm lying when I say I don't read. I don't, but with hers, I'm just kind of like, I'm looking at it with a different eye. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I'm familiar with those stories, but no, I should be, I would like to dabble in more. Let's put it that way, not the should. And maybe I'll have to look into some more like women's history type of stuff because I feel
Mhm.
like, I'm sure I'll learn things that I don't know. Of course, it'll probably only fuel the anger I already have with what I do know, and I'm
Mhm.
perimenopausal, so I don't know if I need more rage or not. I need something calming, something that will
So, one
calm
of
me
my
down.
suggestions, try audiobooks because they're not what they were, and audiobooks are such a nice gateway drug into books. So, I listen to audiobooks too. Audiobooks totally count as reading. So, I also listen to audiobooks and I count those in. Not as many as because I'm not alone. My husband doesn't like audiobooks. He wants to listen to them at one speed, and I can only listen at one and a half, and that never the twain shall meet. So,
Yeah, I could try that. I do like to listen to podcasts, and some of
mhm,
them are not just, entertainment. I love this one called Stuff You Should Know, and they take a topic and they just tackle into
mhm.
like, and I've learned a lot from that. Now, sadly, I haven't retained all the information that I learned, but I did learn from it. So that's true. That is something I could do. Yeah. All right. Well, you're giving me ideas. You're inspiring me here. Well, thank you again so much for your time. I love what you're doing, and congratulations on the success. And I'm thrilled to hear that people are interested in real books, especially young people. That gives me hope for the future. And they're not just going to have their faces on their phones all the time. That's so great. All right, folks. Well, thank you for listening and check out in the show notes again. And when I promote this episode, I will have the website and check out Cupboard Maker. Oh my God, what Cupboard Maker Books on TikTok, on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, all the places. And if you're in the area, make sure you check out the different events that are coming up. I think those will be super fun. And as I end up closing here, I'd just like to say if you're interested in being on the podcast or recommending someone like Michelle did a few minutes ago, please don't be afraid to reach out. This is how I've gotten many of my guests, women who listen and say, you know who you might want to talk to. Please reach out anytime. That would be awesome. As I say every week, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.